Welcome to the Sycamore Branch Out Podcast. I'm Larson Hicks, the CEO of Sycamore, and we've got with us Chrystene Nguyen. Dr. Nguyen is studied in California and is a family medicine and lifestyle medicine physician who's also, as you might guess if you're a frequent listener, has branched out and is doing some other things outside of the typical 9-to-5 physician gig. So we're excited to hear about your other pursuits as a dating scene innovator and aerial artist, among other things. So before we do that, I'd love to just give a quick kind of, why are we doing this podcast? What is this all about for those who are new to Sycamore and to our podcast? So just at a high level, we have physicians on the podcast because we love hearing about physicians who've branched out, who are exploring other alternatives to just your standard practice of medicine, and we hope that it'll be inspiring to physicians to branch out themselves, to find other ways to build a career, build side businesses, side hustles, maybe that become full-time jobs, but taking your medical training and experience and innovating. So we're that's why we do this. We really, as a company, we love, we're trying to facilitate and support and encourage physicians to become independent, because we think a healthcare system where more doctors are independent is going to be a better healthcare system. So that's the why about our podcast. So with that, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Larson, for the very kind and fun introduction.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to be here to having this conversation with you.
Yeah. Well, we're delighted to have you. So let's jump in. You are a family medicine physician. How did you get into medicine in the first place?
Gosh, that goes way back.
Yeah.
So I come from a very large family,
Okay.
an immigrant family. I was born in Vietnam, and
Okay.
I came here when I was 6 years old.
So what's large mean for you, Dr. Nguyen?
Oh, large as in, like, I guess, yeah, you're right. It's all relative. So family of 8 children.
Okay. My wife's pregnant with our 7th, and my brother's wife is pregnant with their 9th. So, large is definitely relative.
What, you have a fun family.
Yes.
As well as mine.
Yes. Okay, sorry to interrupt, but go ahead.
No. That is always fun to hear about, because it's not something you hear a lot about, at least in Southern California.
Yes.
So being an immigrant family, my parents, came here to give us a better life.
Yeah.
And,
That's awesome.
Growing up, it was very tough. It was a struggle. We didn't have healthcare.
Yeah.
And so that was just a big part of what I grew up with.
Yeah.
And also being a typical Asian family, there was always that sort of, I'm going to call it a nudge, but I think it's a lot more than a nudge to become a physician. It's,
Sure.
something that's quite respected. Aside from that, there's also the financial aspect of being able to support your family, and also the honor for any family. And so I felt that pressure growing up a lot. But as I went to school, and I wanted to make sure that this was something that I wanted to do for me. In fact, I actually rebelled, and I started my undergraduate studies as a civil engineer major.
Oh, wow.
Because I was very good in science and math in high school. And I grew up in Santa Ana, which is in Southern California. And so I was like, I don't want to do this because they want me to do it.
Yeah.
Is that kind of attitude I had. And then,
Sure.
After a while, just doing volunteer work in the clinic, and I was like, why am I fighting this? I love this.
That's awesome.
I love the science. I love the relationships. I love being able to help other people feel better, to maintain their health, and so it aligned with my goals, and that's always been a very important thing for me in everything that I do, and it worked out. And certainly it has not been an easy road by any means, but I'm really happy to be where I'm at.
That's awesome. Well, good for you, and good for your parents for pushing you. I think I think the modern American philosophy of everyone sort of being their own snowflake and doing whatever it is they want to do. I think obviously I'm all about freedom and people having a choice, but your parents know you, right? I mean, they know you, they know your talents, your gifts, your interests, and I think it's a real blessing to have parents who are interested in trying to steer you and direct you and nudge you in a certain direction, and sometimes they actually have good ideas there, right?
Yes, and they are right, even though as much as you try to fight it when you're a lot younger, but especially I think as we, mature, we definitely appreciate our parents a lot more and really understand all that they do for us and all the love that they have for us.
Well, so tell me a little bit about, I'm always intrigued to hear physicians talk about their kind of philosophy around medicine, because I think it's something that I found to be highly individual. Every doctor has their own philosophy of why they're a physician and what they think the main purpose and mission of a physician is. So I'd love to hear how you think about that. What is the job of a physician, and why do physicians exist, and why are you a physician?
Yeah, very good question. And certainly there's a lot of definitions out there of what a physician is. I would say that the one that I align with is the definition that a physician is a healer. Mm-hmm. So, the art of healing. Healing is to make one whole, or to reestablish harmony or wholeness. And a physician healer is someone who is using their medical expertise to guide, or rather, I would say, partner in the patient's healthcare journey to empower them to optimize their health, and to reach, all areas of aspect of their life where they feel whole, harmony. And so that's the one that I would say that most aligns with how I feel, what a physician is.
Well, I think it's a great definition, and not uncommon either. But I think one of the things that's unique about how you stated that specifically is you focused on the whole person, and not just dealing with isolated diseases or incidents, but trying to look at the whole person. And I think that's something that our modern mind sometimes is has been lost. In healthcare today, it seems like everything is so specialized, and you see a lot of patients who kind of get lost in the shuffle of jumping from one specialist to another, and nobody's really looking at the whole picture.
Yeah, definitely one of the many complicated issues that faces us today in the healthcare industry.
So how did you end up in family medicine? I mean, I think your definition of medicine kind of gives me a clue, but how did you end up going in specifically into family medicine residency?
Yeah, and certainly from what you heard so far, it was very much a natural that I gravitated toward family medicine. But going through medical school and going through all the different rotations, you sort of it was a lot of like this, the rule in, the rule out process, right? And you're like, well, I can't, go into radiology because I'm going to fall asleep in a dark room.
That's right.
And I don't do well with small objects, like eyeballs. And so you rule out, ophthalmology, and then you decide, really the two big paths is like, are you more medical or are you more surgical? And I was certainly someone who was more medically minded rather than surgically minded, and so it was a rough process. And the day I was like, you know what, I love everything. And coming from a big family, it was just very natural that I gravitated towards family medicine, so it was like no surprise whatsoever.
So did you, after residency, go right into practice?
I did, yes. I went into, I took on a W-2 primary care position that I did for many, many years. Yeah, okay. Mm-hmm. And then at what point did you go through the lifestyle medicine board certification? Was that something you did right away? No, actually, the lifestyle medicine is something very recent, and
Okay.
that did not. I actually didn't even know that lifestyle medicine existed until last year,
Hmm.
and it's a new specialty, and they're getting close to the process of becoming eligible for board,
Yeah.
certified, being recognized. I mean, it
Yeah.
is a board certification for sure, and I
Right.
did get that board certification just in November of 2020.
That's awesome.
So it was something very new that I learned about, and it completely aligns with the way I feel about healthcare and
Right.
and how I feel in terms of like taking care of patients and what's best in their interests and their healthcare.
Yeah. So lifestyle medicine, correct me if I'm wrong here, but it's almost like, I mean, is it, would it be accurate to say that lifestyle medicine is almost more focused on preventative than it is, it's sort of proactive versus reactive medicine?
Yeah, certainly the preventive care is an aspect of that. So,
Okay.
so just in general, lifestyle medicine is an evidence-based therapeutic approach to treat, to prevent, as well as reverse lifestyle-related chronic illnesses. And that's sort of the gist of it. And it's based on 6 pillars, right? The 6 pillars of lifestyle medicine is to adopt a whole foods, plant predominant eating pattern. We encourage regular physical activity. We also focus on making sure patients have restorative sleep, stress management, right? That's another big piece. Avoiding risky substances such as tobacco use, and also, encouraging like positive community and social connection and healthy relationships.
That's good. Very cool. Well, that's exciting. And so has that led you into, like, was that really driven by just a desire to expand your competencies as a primary care physician, or were you kind of thinking about taking a different turn in your career?
Yeah, so this actually came after the fact, meaning, I went through this, if we wanted to call, I don't know that the word is necessarily crisis, but, we certainly evolve in what we do.
Right.
As in our profession.
Right.
And in towards, at the end of August of 2019, I had made the decision to leave primary care, in my fully employed position. And so from there, I was at that time, I was very, very lost in terms of what it is that I wanted to do professionally. And there was, a lot happening at that time that sort of led me to make that decision. But I knew that at that point I was ready to leave because I wanted more. I was ready for a change. Professionally as well as developmentally. Just a little backstory. My father had passed away a few years before. And, I was struggling in so many ways, and just like a lot of physicians out there, we are juggling a lot of things, right? Our personal life as physicians, and the priority has always been about, taking care of our patients. But we're, like everybody else, we have families. And so my sisters and I were taking care of my mom and the rest of the large family to adjust. And I'm one of the older siblings. I'm the third out of 8.
Okay.
So I feel very much like one of the parents, and certainly took over. And really, I should give the credit to my older sister, who really took care of my father during the last days of his life, and before that even, and my mom. And I think I felt a lot of guilt. That she and my other families took on. And so I did what I could because they all knew how busy I was. So trying to, juggle that with the family, trying to juggle my professional full-time position, and just feeling a lot of burnout, or if you want to call it moral injury. And at the end of the day, like, I felt like I didn't take care of myself to the degree that I felt like I was preaching. I felt like, I was being a hypocrite. And it felt very robotic. And at that point, I knew that it was time to make a change, because it wasn't ideal for myself and my family and my patients. And, certainly I took care of the patients, but what I'm trying to get at is, at the end of the day, I came last. And, and I think that it's not healthy at all. It's not a good balance. It's not a good way to live your life.
It seems to me, and it seems to me that every specialty in medicine today tends to chew doctors up and spit them out. I mean, the Henry Ford model of economics, with the specialization and the assembly line. It seems like we're now deeply entrenched in a medical system that operates that way, and so the calling. It seems like you have to ask yourself, is this conducive? This may be conducive to making money, right? But is this conducive to healing people? And is it conducive to healers being able to do what they're called to do, what they love doing, which as you so eloquently put it, is caring for the whole person. That takes time. That takes inquiry. That takes, really knowing your patients. And I just don't know how you do that in some of the ways that we practice medicine today. I know that I don't know what the numbers were like for you, but I know that I've heard in a typical primary care practice for the practice to be profitable, even for one doctor, it's something like 2,000 patients or something. What like, can you speak to that at all? Like, what was the volume like for you?
Yeah, I don't know the actual numbers because I was an employee. I was a W-2 employee in corporate medicine. But certainly, I think you're right on in that ballpark in terms of the load that each one of us carries. And it really depends also the area where you live and the makeup of your patients. Some patients, younger versus an older population, and certainly how complicated their medical history and what level of management that that is needed to ensure their health.
Yeah, I don't know what the average length of visit is today in primary care, or the average amount of time that a typical primary care physician spends with a patient. But I know last time I went, it wasn't very long.
Yeah, it was not. And certainly I think the way the system is designed, it is just does not benefit the physician or the patients, there's just there's all these measures out there and the criteria that is so unrealistic. That is what is expected of a physician. And so there's just all around us. I think it's just very difficult that we're all trying to juggle all these responsibilities and at the same time be the type of physician that we want to be for our patients.
Yeah. Is there, you talked about metrics, and I'm curious just because the people listening to this, I think it's a lot of physicians, but they're all coming from different specialties. So, I'm more familiar with emergency medicine because that's where a lot of our doctors operate. But they've got a whole set of metrics and RVUs that they're thinking about. What are kind of the pressures just on the ground as an employee in a corporate, primary care world? What do you feel like were the pressures on you as a physician with regard to the metrics? Like, what are the things that you're really focused on or sort of felt pressure to impact?
Yeah, so they have this thing called RVUs, so which we're all familiar with, and so a large part of that is the number of patients that you see, and so there's always that push to decrease the time slot that is allocated to the patient visit, and then also the level of complexity, and then on top of that, there's also especially as a primary care physicians, there are also these measures that you have to make sure that the patients are healthy, right? Make sure that they're getting all these preventive health measures, like that it's not even, there's no time allotted for that, but it's something that is the expectation. And I understand that's a big important part of it. But I think, more and more metrics are being added. But we don't get any more time like during the visit or even after the visit. These are the expectations that you have to fulfill. Right. And it's just, as I said earlier, it's just gotten so unrealistic.
Yeah, I always think about, I don't know if you've seen the movie Office Space. Are you familiar with that movie? Yes. Okay, I think about the TPS reports, right? It's like, so many doctors these days feel like it's all about the TPS reports. It's like, coding and all this stuff. And nobody signed up to be a physician so they could obsess about charting and complexity of procedures and all these things. You're like you said before, you got into medicine because you want to heal people.
And the insurance, right?
Yeah.
All the paperwork, all the
gosh.
time that you spend on the insurance paperwork, and then of course you throw in the whole like patient satisfaction scores. And I understand the intention behind it, but I don't know that that's necessarily in the best interest of everyone, right?
That's right.
Because it really does drive the health visit in a very different way.
Yeah. Well, this is one of the things that I'm kind of obsessed with, not just in medicine, just in all areas. I'm really interested in seeing more and more people pull out of just the corporate world generally and try to start small businesses, family businesses. And I think what happens to so many people who are entrepreneurs with great ideas, with great work ethic, are ethical, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, who start businesses today, they sort of get sucked into, I think, this corporate rat race world. And I feel like, and it's a world that's really dominated by banks, right? And, private equity and venture capital, and, but also these big industries like insurance and healthcare. And, you sort of get sucked into these worlds, and it really changes the focus of your business, and it starts pulling you into this kind of obsession with metrics and growth, and I just think this is what leads people to go from starting a business that is a passion of theirs into it being something that they just hate.
Yeah.
So what are you doing now? So it sounds like you've pulled out of the primary care world. What are you doing now with your time?
Yeah, so I haven't pulled out of the primary care completely.
Okay.
I pulled out of being a full-time primary care physician.
Got it. Okay.
Ever since I left, and at that time, I was, as I mentioned earlier, I was like so lost. I didn't really have a plan.
Right.
I just knew that it was time for a change, and I knew that in order for me to be able to, help my sister take care of my mom, and to be able to become the physician and practice the way that I wanted, and I was really at that time looking for a lot more flexibility as well. And really, it was born out of a need at that time, and just all the frustration and the feeling that I was feeling. And then when I left, I turned to becoming a Locum's urgent care physician, which is what I've been doing until
awesome.
recently. And then about a few months ago, I've actually gotten back into primary care, doing per diem primary care work as well. So now I'm currently doing both on a Locum's per diem position, which has actually worked a lot well for me, and I think it's given me some of the love of primary care that I had, but not to the extent that it did before, where it wasn't really compatible with the way that I no longer saw myself practicing as a physician.
Right. Can you explain that a little further? Because I think that's a really interesting. I mean, it's I see a lot of doctors who they get burned out, and to them, they're burned out on medicine, right? And they're altogether. It's like, I just don't even want to be a physician anymore. I don't want to see it anymore. It's kind of like, when somebody, drinks too much tequila and they're like, okay, I can never drink tequila again. Right? It's like, well, it's not it's the fact that you had a bad relationship with it more than it is the thing itself. Right. So why does practicing primary care and urgent care in more of a per diem or locum tenens capacity, why is that a better fit for you now? Or how has that helped you regain the love that you had for medicine?
Yeah, good question. So what it was for me was, it was about choice, and it was about freedom is what it was. it was something that, I went back to why I became a physician. And, I certainly, was not, I never was ready to to completely leave medicine. It's such a big part
Right.
of my identity and who I am. But I asked
Right.
myself, how is this going to work for me? And at the end of the day, it was having the choice. I choose to work and be a physician. In my case, being urgent care and primary care physician. It's being able to find that balance and being able to have the option of when to work on my own terms is what it was for me.
Yeah, and I think people, I think people have this view of locum tenens, especially that that it's for doctors who aren't as high quality or don't have as good training, and has that been your, I mean, I'm obviously asking this about yourself, but I'm sure you've interacted with other doctors that are doing the same thing. I mean, have you found that to be the case, that these doctors are subpar in some way or not able to hack it, in some way?
Certainly we are not, because I certainly don't feel that way about myself or all the other locum tenens physicians that I have met. And so, but I will admit that was definitely me, just having that perception of what a locum tenens, physician was someone who couldn't secure that position. And so when I started doing locum tenens work and I met other physicians out there, and I remember having a conversation with someone who I found out this is her line of work and this is her her job, you want to call it that. And and she told me she had been doing this for at least 10 years. And I was like, what? You've been doing this for 10, 20 years? And she's like, yes, I love it. This is totally me, and it's being able to give me the flexibility, and it's brought back the joy of medicine for me. And I was also really surprised because I had reconnected with an old friend, and I found out that he was also doing, locum tenens work as well. And so, and I had, now learned about this whole community who, absolutely quite far from the truth of being subpar by any means. This is something that we have chosen to be, and it's something that we've chosen to work. If anything, I think that when you choose to be a physician and work in this setting, the mindset that you have and what you bring to when you treat patients, I think it makes a world of difference. It's just very, very different in the way that you approach patient care and healthcare.
I think that's such a good point, and I think, and I you said it so well that you're choosing to be there. So it's like every day when you show up to work, I think for most of us, it's for a lot of folks, you're showing up because you have to. You're an employee. You don't have a choice. You work when the boss tells you to work, and you work as much as the boss tells you to work. And the idea that a locum tenens physician or per diem physician is working when they want to. They're working because they want to. And if they get to a point to where they don't want to, they don't. And so it's such a big, it's subtle, right? I mean, ultimately you're both of those two physicians are trying to make a living, and that's kind of underlying cause of it, right? But the big difference is that you have the ability to scale up or scale down and take time off when you need it. And I've heard other locums physicians talk about how they get to show up to work happy. They get to take as much time off as they need, go do something cool, take a cool vacation, explore, spend time with their family. And then when they come to work, they're really happy, and they're more than happy to work really hard, because it's like, look, I'm here for my block of shifts, and then I'm back out, and I get to go do whatever I want. And so that's a big difference.
Yeah, absolutely. You really have to take care of yourself and be happy in all aspects of your life. Yeah. And I would say my relationships with patients have never been better. And it's been wonderful. And the feedback that I have gotten from patients, and I can tell by the interaction and how the way that they've responded to me and how the way that I've been able to make an impact in their healthcare has never been as better as it has been now.
That's really cool. So, okay, so you're doing locum tenens per diem work, both urgent care and primary care. What else do you have going on?
Well, you may have heard that I've been involved in something called the White Coat Romance.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Tell
so
me
it's
about
become
this.
a big part of my life. And this is something that I've never thought in my wildest dream that I would ever be involved with.
Yeah.
And I guess I should call myself an entrepreneur. It's
Yeah.
still strange for me to say that about myself. And this, all came out of COVID-19 quarantine.
Yeah.
I definitely had the flexibility doing locum tenens work, and then unfortunately with the COVID-19 pandemic happening, and then the quarantine, and being single, I'm single, healthcare, and at the time doing urgent care work, I was feeling very isolated during COVID-19 quarantine, and I knew that I wasn't the only one out there. I had during that time just spending a lot of time with other friends who were in healthcare, and especially my single healthcare friends, and so I decided, that let's form this community. There was a lot of communities that was forming on Facebook, a lot of different physicians community, especially. And I said, we need our own community, being single healthcare providers, healthcare professionals. And I started in July of 2020, and it's called White Coat Romance. It's a community of single healthcare professionals, currently with clinical doctorate degrees, and it was a space for us to come together to virtually mingle. There's so many friendships that's come out of it, also some budding romantic relationships as well.
That's awesome.
And also it's just a space for us to provide support for us during this time when all this physical distancing and this isolation left us feeling very, very alone. And it's been really wonderful to have the support of this community to be able to sort of go through this difficult and tough time together and support one another. And I love this community so much.
Cool.
They're just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful group. Yeah.
So have you had any marriages that have come out of White Coat Romance yet?
Oh, it's still too early for that. But yeah, I really do hope, and I actually do see some really, really, really great potential for
That's
that.
Cool.
But certainly the Facebook community is a group interaction, and not everybody wants to be in social media. It's certainly not for everybody, and so I out of the Facebook group, and also just even pre COVID and being single and trying to be out and about in the dating scene, it was certainly a very difficult and challenging thing to do.
For sure.
And so, I saw that there was this need and this interest to make a larger impact among this community. And so I've been on this path and in the process of developing the White Coat Romance dating app.
Wow.
This app is going to be for a much larger audience. It does consist of, certainly we want to keep it in theme with single white coat professionals, but it includes a community of single healthcare professionals with doctorate and master's degrees, also health science and research PhDs, as well as doctoral candidates, students like med students, dental students, and so forth.
Cool.
So I'm very excited about this project that I've been working on and where it'll take me, and the impact that I'll be able to make on the lives of single healthcare professionals.
Well, I think it's great, and there's I've got both my mom and my brother found their spouse through a dating app, and it's the times have changed, and this is kind of how people. This is a really great way for folks to find each other, and one thing that I think people underestimate sometimes about marriage is it really is a partnership, or at least it should be. And I found in my own marriage that my wife is very involved in my career and the stuff that I'm doing. We're talking, brainstorming, collaborating, a lot in our career pursuits, and in our household we're exploring different things. And so I think it makes perfect sense for physicians and white coat professionals to be looking within that niche, potentially for a potential spouse or potential partner.
Yeah, and certainly, it's a very unique group with unique
Yeah.
needs, and by and large, is certainly I say by and large because this group largely desires a partner who has similar intellectual, financial, and life goals as as they do, and so certainly because of how our lives are and how busy we are, and it would be nice to be with someone who understands the unique demands and challenges of our
Totally.
profession and what we do every single day, our hectic schedules, all that.
Totally.
And so, and it can be very, very complicated, to be able to find that partner that meets all these needs, to find that,
sure.
complete match.
Yeah. We had a episode with our founder, Dr. Husseini, and one of his best friends, Dr. Graves Froming. And they were talking about just how incredibly vital their friendship is, as a antidote to burnout, because they've got a friend, and they're lifetime friends. They grew up together, went to elementary school together. So they've been, good friends since they were young. And they talked about having somebody who they really know and they know really cares about them, that they can really be transparent with about the struggles that they have in their profession and the stresses that are involved. They're both emergency physicians now, right? And so being able to have that, I can see how incredibly lonely and difficult it would be for somebody in this line of work to not have that kind of relationship and not have somebody like that in their lives. And so again, I think it makes perfect sense that all things being equal, if that person could be your spouse or your partner, that'd be amazing.
Yeah. And so that's why I've been on this mission, and I'm such a hopeless romantic, and
That's awesome.
and certainly, finding that person doesn't make you like happy or complete. Happiness starts with you.
Sure.
But certainly if I could be a part of that process and providing that introduction, to lead you to adding on to your happiness, because I feel like, we've made so many sacrifices, as healthcare professionals, and where we are currently, and we've, for a lot of us, especially myself, we've put ourselves in the back burner, especially when it comes to the romantic department. So I think the time is now for us to find our happiness with that person that we envision that will, complete us, and in addition to who we already are as a person.
So on the app front, are you doing the programming of this app, or are you also a programmer, or is that something you're partnering with somebody to do?
Yeah, I wish I had that skill and that talent. I know nothing, and so this is part of the big challenge, and this has been such a huge learning it's been a huge learning curve for me on many fronts, right? So building the business entity as well as working with a developer, and thankfully the developer is my brother-in-law.
Nice. That's awesome.
So it's been really great, and certainly I would say there are challenges with working with family, but all in all, it's been really, really wonderful, and he's such a wonderful person for me to be able to communicate with, and it has taken a lot longer than I anticipated, and we're both kind of learning as we go,
right.
in terms of what it takes, and just kind of finding out what it is this community needs and the ways that I can support them and design an app that we want to use. Myself and my friends who have used dating apps, it's just been a whole lot of frustration. And I will tell you that most people don't necessarily want to use a dating app. Like that wouldn't be their primary way of meeting somebody.
Right.
Certainly the preference is to meet someone organically in person, but certainly our lives are so busy that this has become a very popular way of meeting other singles, and in this case, because we desire meeting somebody who are similar to what we're looking for, I want to be able to design an app that I want to use. I want to design an app that my friends want to use, and so I want to be able to take the pain points of the dating apps and change the way that we see dating apps, that it shouldn't be like such a painful and time-consuming process as it currently has been.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Want to make it less complicated.
Absolutely.
To the best of my ability.
Absolutely. Well, I'm fascinated by the dating app world. I feel like it's been kind of an arms race with all the different apps and companies out there, and the algorithms and the different, technology involved in trying to make a match. It sounds like just by limiting it the way that you have, you're already taking a lot of that work out of the process. Your likelihood of finding a good match within the network, I would imagine, would already be much higher than anywhere else right out of the gates.
Yeah, because there's, some of the pain points that we heard out there that I've mentioned, but
Yeah.
then there's also the issue of a lot of the fake profiles and the catfishers that's currently in the dating apps right now. So one of the, a unique feature of the White Coat Romance dating app is NPI, that's the National Physician Provider Identifier. And not everybody has an NPI, and so we will use other forms of verification, and so I think that's going to be a big piece of it. Certainly it won't reduce all of it, but hopefully it will reduce a large burden of that part of the frustration of using the dating apps.
Totally. That's a great point. I didn't even think about that, but that's huge. Well, very cool. So that the app is in development. The community on Facebook is already up and running, and that's called White Coat Romance.
White Coat Romance.
Okay.
Yes.
Very cool. So I love it. Well, good for you. And I think there's not. I think the one of the things that we've probably talked about this before on the show, but I think a lot of physicians who dabble in entrepreneurship get bogged down by the science of being an entrepreneur, of starting a business. And it makes sense. Physicians are great at studying and research, right? And learning. And so what I've seen a lot of physicians do is just dive super deep into books and it ends up creating this kind of analysis paralysis where there's this thought that, well, I'm going to do it wrong. And there's certainly a lot of ways to screw up a business, but in the end, a business plan or a business model is not really all that helpful for anybody but a potential investor, to get an idea of what you're doing and try to understand what you're doing. So that's really the extent of the value of those kinds of things. But the real value is, do you have people who are willing to, who need the product and who you can prove need the product, want the product, or are willing to pay for it. And then it's just a matter of execution, and frequently you learn more by doing than you do by reading. So I have you had that experience of falling into that temptation to kind of overthink this venture?
Oh my goodness, all the time. How about every day?
Yeah.
How about multiple times during the day? You totally nailed it. Being who we are, and I certainly have a lot of moments where I get obsessed about things. Let's research this some more. Let's read about this, and let's find out what else I can do and what else we can help. To sort of provide this solution for, if you want to call it this problem. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's about taking action, right? Just taking, no matter how small, taking that first step that leads you to that next step. And I never thought, that I'd be here where I am today from last year, just simply by taking that first step. And then from there, just getting feedback and just expanding on your idea. And just, as long as it just goes in line with your passion and your mission and your values. Totally. And I think all that will lead you in the right direction and taking the next action that gets even closer to your goals.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. Keep it up. I'm excited to hear about the progress of your app and your community. And I'm sure it's going to go great. So good on you for it. And I hope that it becomes something that becomes a huge success, and something you can that will support you, financially, or at least contribute, substantially to your income.
Yeah, I hope so too. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Larson. I'm very excited about it, and I appreciate all the words
Yeah.
of support.
Well, okay, so I was the one of the last things I wanted to learn more about, because it's fascinating. You don't see a lot of people doing it, is the aerial arts. Can you tell me? I saw that on your social media that you're into the aerial arts. So what are the aerial arts, and what is going on there?
So yes, aerial arts. Yes, my love and passion for the aerial arts. Yeah, that's something that I had started doing about, I would say about 4 years ago. I did take a little break
Okay.
in between, and just one day decided to, take a class at an aerial
Okay.
studio, and just fell in
Wow.
love with it. And it's something that I just have been doing every
Wow.
week. And it really does, I would call it my meditation. It's my
Yeah.
mindfulness. It, even though I'm off the ground, but it keeps
Yeah.
me grounded. And whenever I need to, I go and take a class and hang out with my aerial
That's cool.
friends. And I feel like I'm back to being me again.
That's so cool. So this is aerial arts are essentially, I've seen things like Cirque du Soleil. Is that probably the best example of the aerial arts?
Oh my goodness. I am such a beginner and amateur, quite far from it, but I know that folks like to think of it
Okay.
along those lines. Yeah, it's fun to
Yeah.
think of it that way. But I am still such a beginner, as you'll see. But for me, it's just, that's something that I love doing, and it's my
Yeah.
it's my fitness. It's my regular physical activity, and certainly there are other things that I like to do, but this is the bulk of what I do as far as my regular physical activity.
We've actually pulled up a video here, so I wanna check it out real quick. We'll hit play, and you can maybe describe to me what's going on here.
Yeah, so this was my very first routine. It was a duo routine that I did for as part of the student performance,
Oh
and
wow.
yeah, and so start by learning to get up and to climb,
Yeah.
and then as you get more comfortable and the instructor feels that you're ready, they will advance you to try the various routines, just being on the silks. And it's just so fun because, as you can see, there's aside from the fitness part of it, there's also the
Right.
performance part of it that is just so enjoyable. And each class we will learn pieces of routine and we will combine them,
Yeah.
and then it's fun to just like perform and just kind of be somewhere else for a little bit,
Yeah.
and just enjoy what you're doing.
That's so cool. So it looks to me like you've got to have incredible strength to do this. What's it like? Like, what kind of training is involved to get to a point to where you can sit there hanging from a scarf, basically, with nothing but a single leg, or your arms out at your side?
Yeah, I say anyone can start doing aerial.
Really?
Yes. And so, and just how I was, like, I had no experience whatsoever. I couldn't
Yeah.
even do a pull-up. I couldn't lift myself at all. As you can see now
Really?
that, it's something that I've become quite comfortable with. And so,
Yeah.
as with all things, it's all about practice. It's all about showing up, right? And it's all about the doing. It's the action. And each time you advance and you move on to the next level, and it's fun, and you learn new tricks and new routines, and you build on it, and it just motivates you to move on to the next level and the next level, and before you know it, you're all the way at the top of the ceiling.
That's so cool. Were you involved in dance or gymnastics before, or is this your kind of first venture into that world?
None of it at all. I wish I was.
Really?
Like, growing up, like, I wanted to be a dancer, and I completely
Yeah.
adored the gymnasts and watching them do. I am like, yeah, no experience whatsoever. So this was a very new thing for me. And when I think about, now that you've asked me this question, and just being able to try something new, and certainly there was a lot of fear. I won't
Right.
deny that when I
Right.
started this, and the fear is no different to what I'm doing with White Coat Romance. But but it just takes time and
Yeah.
just kind of like having faith and confidence in yourself and what you
Yeah.
can achieve. And we all have had examples in our life where we've been able to, get involved in something, whether it's Ariel with what I'm doing now that we're watching, or some passion project that, we have the skills and the talents, and the know-how. It's there, and some of it
Yeah.
will, certainly require some help and some guidance. But you can get there, and just believe
Yeah.
in yourself, and just follow your heart and your passion, and do all the things that you enjoy doing that makes you unique.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, it's a good, I love what you said earlier about, when you're doing this, it's kind of an escape, and it's an opportunity where you're just kind of in your own world doing your own thing. And I was an avid runner for a number of years, and I definitely had that experience when I was running, of just kind of, it was my time of, you described as meditation. I think that's a good word for it, where it was just kind of me and my running and my breathing, and just kind of focusing on the road in front of me, and my pace and those things. So it's a, I've gotten more and more kind of stressed with work and just lots of stuff going on in our life. We've gotten really busy, and those pursuits have tend to be the first thing to go, right? And I think it's a good reminder for me, and I'm sure other people, that you need to devote time to those kinds of pursuits, lest you get yourself into an unbalanced, unhealthy place.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree.
That's awesome. Well, this has been so much fun, Dr. Nguyen, and I loved hearing your story and about your pursuits outside of practice, but I also loved hearing about your journey, going from a corporate W-2 full-time, primary care physician to sort of transforming how you even do your practice as a physician. And so thank you for making the time to visit with us, and I'm excited to share this. If people want to find your community, or follow what you're doing, where would be the best places to check them out?
Well, thank you for having me. I've truly enjoyed having this really fun conversation with you, and it really helps me to give me an opportunity to sort of reflect on a lot of things that I've been doing and where it takes me. So I thank you for that. As far as where to reach me, there's multiple places across all the different social media channels. If you are for the Facebook community, the White Coat Romance Facebook community, if you're a single healthcare professional with clinical doctorate degree, certainly come join our community.
Cool.
I had decided to limit this community because it's really my limitation on what I'm able to manage at this time. And
totally.
But the White Coat Romance dating app development, as I mentioned earlier, is for a much larger community of white coat professionals, with the single healthcare doctorate and master's degree, the health science and research PhDs, as well as the doctoral students. And so come, if you'd like to, you can certainly sign up for our email list. Go to the website, whitecoatromance.com, and you can join the email list. And even if you're not a single healthcare professional, but would like to support us and follow me and the rest of our community and the journey, certainly you can sign up on the email list as well to follow up our progress and get updates on when the app will get released. Aside from that, we have the White Coat Romance Facebook business page. We also have the Instagram page, as well as also can be found in LinkedIn as well. So
awesome.
Yep. We are hopefully we're on all the channels, and hopefully you're going to spread out and hear more and more about us over time.
I love it. Well, very cool. This has been a lot of fun, like I said, and thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you again. Appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.